Welcome. My name is Zolikin, and I wanted to cover on something that I feel a lot of us can relate with concerning forgiveness. And not only for my personal reference, but to anyone else that may appeal to this subject. I just wanted to touch on some things that I've personally experienced, how I've been able to understand forgiveness, and I wanted to jot down 4 ways that I had forgiven other people in my personal life, and that goes with professional life as well. However way you find yourself feeling concerned for this matter, or just having to grow through forgiveness, it's surely a process for everyone, and it is all different. I am no one to give any medical advice as far as mental disabilities or therapy of any sort, but by all means, I come on here just providing the people with my own experience, as well as informing myself on some of the things that I've learned throughout my time living. The 4 ways I've been able to forgive others is 1, my dad. Knowing to love through time and forgiveness. Let me repeat that again. Knowing to love through time and forgiveness. 2, my mom. Knowing to build back from forgiveness. Knowing to build back from forgiveness. 3, my sister. Knowing to forgive oneself through the forgiveness of others. And then 4, my stepdad. Knowing to forgive through distance and forgiveness as one. Knowing to forgive through distance and forgiveness as one. Now I want to go ahead and touch up on 1, my dad. Now, being with my dad, I had trouble with him. Parents being divorced, not knowing how that would end up, being at such a young age, I'd been put this image of my dad, thinking that he was a horrible man, and I knew nothing about him, from the little that I did know about him, until I would leave. But up until that point, I was very young, so having those recollections of my dad weren't very fond of me, though to my mother they were very critical of her to pass judgment on how I should perceive my dad, and that affected my relationship. And it's not to disclose my mother's perception on someone else, but it's good to know how to experience these things for ourselves and conclude what that might mean to ourselves before we take that on from someone else. So it's good to experience someone one-on-one. And knowing to love through time in forgiveness was one of the things that I learned being with him. I was just about to turn 18, and leaving for my mother's all of a sudden, I'd come over to where my dad was at. I told myself I didn't want to go any further, feeling the way I felt about my dad and being the way I was, very troubled at my age, at my young youth, that I wouldn't want to have this build up because of something that I thought was the problem, which was my dad, not having my dad around. So I'd eventually end up leaving, going, and being there with him without any knowledge of knowing what would happen throughout that time. He'd eventually accept me into the house. I'd be there for some years, and starting on the first year, it was very awkward. I didn't know how to go about feeling that I loved this man when I really hated him. So being in the same house as him, it was hard for me to get up in the morning and feel comfortable about being around him or having to communicate to him, sometimes even disclosing those conversations with him because of how I felt. So it was premeditated throughout the days that will follow, just on some of the actions that I would do, some of the things that I would say that would really impact our relationship. But throughout that time being of just feeling disclosed from him and feeling very secluded on how I wanted to present myself and how I really felt about him, through time, as I would continue to stay there for years, I would learn that it wasn't just that I was experiencing my dad on a new level, but it was also that I had the time to be with him, to really know how he was, that one-on-one interaction that would in turn allow me to love him. And in that love, I would also learn to forgive him. And some things I would have changed just on how I would have said these things, but other times we don't need words. Sometimes that comes through our actions. It comes through some of the things that we want to inform others about, that takes having to forgive them to even say. And one of those things that I would tell him was how much of a great man he was, how much he was dearly loved by God, by me, and that he had done enough for his family in the time that he did have us around. And that was knowing to love him through time, that eventually would strengthen those bonds of having him there. Now the next one I want to touch up on is to my mom. Knowing to build back from forgiveness. There would be times after I left my mom, or times that I would leave periodically throughout the time of having struggles with my mother, that she'd eventually come initiating this conversation, that she would plead for forgiveness to me. And having receiving this all, I would receive this fairly well, given that she would initiate the conversation first. And whether it be one way or the other, through that forgiveness and accepting that forgiveness and seeing how this person would go out of their way, how you would go out of your way to communicate that to somebody, eventually from what had been broken, what had already incurred throughout that time, was the same time that we would need to build back up from what was broken. So it may feel as though you don't truly forgive that person, but because of what had been broken previously, it would only take time to build and forgive, building on that forgiveness. So knowing to build back from forgiveness, forgiving and then learning to build back from that forgiveness is how I saw me and my mother growing stronger throughout the days that will follow, when we would initiate a conversation on how we felt, how our day was going, and so on and so forth. Now the third one is my sister. Knowing to forgive oneself through the forgiveness of others. Being young, having my sister around, being younger than I was, being the oldest of all my siblings, we don't necessarily keep in mind what our siblings think about us. And because we don't keep that in mind, there are certain things that we do that might affect them. And I saw that a lot throughout my young youth, how I would do things negligently, overlooking how my sister would receive it, or my brother and my other siblings, and in turn having to face the consequences of those actions, which was seeing how they would react, how they would respond to me, or how they would perceive me. And there had been things that I had done wrongfully to my sister that would leave our relationship at detriment, because it was damaged by what I would do or what I would say. And knowing to forgive oneself through the forgiveness of others was knowing that after the fact that I would leave from where my mother was at, where my siblings were at, I would eventually recollect everything that I had done wrong. And I would learn to forgive myself, which took a lot of self-reflection, a lot of healing within me, in order to be strong enough to explain to someone else that I dearly loved, especially being young, how much I actually wanted their forgiveness. and having the courage to say and admit what I was wrong for, which took having to forgive myself, having to sit with myself before I could go out seeking out forgiveness from others. Now the fourth one is my stepdad. Knowing to forgive through distance and forgiveness as one. Knowing to forgive through distance and forgiveness as one. Coming up young, my mother would eventually find someone after everything had taken place. And having this new man around was very new to me. And in the time that we would have to develop our relationship, there would be some things that I didn't quite agree with, and neither did he. And we both reached disagreements with one another that would eventually leave our relationship broken or damaged. And from that would eventually lead to me being kicked out the house, not being able to come back or be in his presence, or having tension between the two. Every time that I would come around, or when he would come around, how things would be very intensive throughout those interactions. Learning to forgive through distance and forgiveness as one is knowing that after you've had time to be far from this person, especially in hot-tempered situations with someone you know is of authority or of head of the house or anything of the such, you want to be able to get yourself out of those hot-tempered situations, not to add more fire to the flame. So in doing that, I had taken time away for months until I'd eventually periodically go throughout the week to go and see my mother, and in turn also see my stepdad. And that would lead to us building back our relationship through small interactions that we would have, still having that intensive emotion and those thoughts that may stir up within us, but knowing to hold to those thoughts and emotions that may keep us from really learning to forgive somebody that affect our relationship. So it's better not to hold to those thoughts or emotions that tell us otherwise on how someone might feel about us, knowing that they very well might feel that way, but also having the opportunity to be open-minded to the circumstance given in order to forgive as one. And forgiving as one is knowing that my stepdad could go out doing whatever he did just as much as I did whatever I did. If I'd go and visit, I'd go and visit. If he was around, then he'd be around. If he wasn't, or if he was cooking, whatever of the such, going about daily life as you usually would, without feeling contradicted by how we might feel or how we know they're certain on how they feel about us. That in time, we would continue to build up from small communication that we would have with one another. Small communication that helped us to continue to build that relationship. People want to know that you're trying, that you at least care. And one thing that I would do to really add to the flame was the fact that I would go out of my way to give little gifts. I would give good gifts. I would communicate how I felt, how I was concerned about them, about him and their family, his family. This would help me to forgive and learn to seek forgiveness from him as well. Because having been there at his house, his household, his family, so as you can say, that he wouldn't have allowed me there if it hadn't been from forgiveness at a distance and then forgiveness as one. Him going about his business just as much as I do and learning to respect that. And then in time, adding and actually trying to implement those ways of showing somebody that you care, that would insinuate that you are forgiving them and that they are forgiving you and allowing your presence there. One saying that I like to go about this matter specifically when knowing to forgive through distance and forgiveness as one is, when there's more, you pour. If there's more in you to want to pour, or if there's more in him to want to pour in you, then by all means do so. But to some extent, either it be one way or the other, some things are enough, and other things are enough to suffice to what may have been missed from those interactions that you may have had, which might be telling someone physically, I forgive you, for having to hear it from them, but knowing to go up the steps primarily first through distance, and then forgiveness as one, going about our daily lives as one life, and then finding it in our hearts to pour in more into that person, or allowing them to pour into us as well. And that just covers all 4 of those ways I've learned to forgive, and hope that you can learn from it as well. Surely I will take this as reference for my own life, and hopefully you can take reference to it as well. But I thank you for listening, and may you have a great rest of your day.